Coming up on the show this week, we've got a prototype downhill bike with a modular drivetrain.
Oh, I do love a downhill bike, Anna. And we've got the new 170mm travel Intense Tracer.
Yeah, and Doddy's going to do a bike cave for us. That's why he's not here today, but we've got Steve. So, topic today is Fox versus RockShox, that age-old debate.
Anna, before we go into that, great to see you.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Great to have you here.
Craig, you must have been here, 12 months now?
Nearly.
How's things going?
10 months.
How's things going with Andrew?
It's all right, it's not bad. Yeah, no, it's very good, actually. I enjoy it.
I have to say, thanks so much for inviting me onto GMBN Tech. I mean, Doddy didn't want to do it, so
no, I know. Well, you're our first choice for sure.
Thanks.
If you don't know who Steve is from EMBN Show. But you've done some non-E stuff before.
I have to say,
you've been about the media world.
When
for
you
quite some
guys
time.
said about the downhill, I'm all over this new bike, which we're going to be looking at on today's show. But like you said, Fox or RockShox?
That debate. I mean, I know what
it a
is
debate?
for me.
Is it a debate?
Not for me, it's not. I've got a clear favourite. Have you got a clear favourite? I've watched you ride in the RockShox flight attendant recently.
Oh, I have to say, yeah. I mean, let's start off with RockShox. I mean, I think RockShox were actually the first forks on my downhill bike back in the 1990s. Flight attendant, rode that in the summer. I think it definitely has a place for many people. It takes the guesswork out of things. You can be, especially, I don't talk e-bikes too much, but when you're going up and down along the cross, then sometimes you're fanning around with lockouts or stuff like that. With flight attendant, it just does it for you. So you can still do the sort of multi-adjusts, more compression, more or less rebound, things like that. You can do all that. But I think, it definitely has a place, so too does, the access shifter and stuff like that.
Is it worth adding maybe an extra £1,000 to the price tag of a bike though?
I am still a manual person, but this comes to, Fox or RockShox. But going back to RockShox, they were the people that came up with the fantastic boxer fork back in the 1990s. I think they were the first people to win the World Downhill Championships.
Yeah, well, they were actually the first to invent a mountain bike suspension fork back in 1989 as well. Yeah,
so actually what brings me on to this whole business of Fox versus RockShox. Now, I do believe that the guy behind Boss Suspension, Olivier Bossard, which we're talking about Fox and RockShox, I think there's other brands as well which are equally important.
Yeah. Okay,
we're talking Boss, we're talking Öhlins, talking EXT when it comes to rear suspension. So I don't think we should be too sort of down one alleyway with this conversation. But it is a conversation which many people, want to choose, because I think it's driven a lot by the mountain bike media. The 36 versus the Lyric, the 38 versus the Zeb and things like that, right?
Yeah. You're right. We do focus on Fox and RockShox a lot. And I've got to say, Boss was my first suspension setup on my first enduro bike, and I absolutely adored it. They were so buttery smooth. They were incredible. If I could have that now, I would. But for me, I've just totally fallen in love with the Fox factory suspension lately. That Grip 2 damper is incredible. It's so buttery smooth. You've got 4-way adjustments, which I like to personalise my forks. I really do. And my rear suspension. And then the addition of that VVC, for me as a lightweight rider, I hate to say the word game changer. I know you hate that word, that phrase.
I don't.
But for me, having to not send my forks off for a light tune, being able to dial it in myself straight out of the box is just, I love it.
I guess you mentioned buttery smooth. Of course, RockShox have got the buttercups in their new forks.
Yeah. And aren't you a bit of a chainsaw fan as well?
Oh yeah,
they use something similar on chainsaws.
The technology there is apparently derived from chainsaws. Yeah. But I want to say one other thing. Obviously, you're talking performance here, right? So if we're talking RockShox versus Fox, are we talking in terms of, are we measuring performance? Are we measuring value for money? Are we measuring reliability? I mean, there's lots of different angles we could talk about in that. When it comes to performance, do you know, Anna, I think I think there's probably more likelihood of me having a bad day than there is the difference between a Fox fork or a RockShox fork, to be brutally honest with you.
That's a fair point.
I think performance between the two is pretty equal. I think the cost of I mean, if you're just talking about forks, I think there's a cost difference between Fox or RockShox, which many people might take into account. There's also the visual thing. We're talking about some of the historical stuff of RockShox and Fox, and I think many people buy into that. And I think it's valid. I mean, you're talking Kashima on Fox. You're talking,
gold's betterer, is it not?
It is better.
It is
betterer.
Yeah.
I actually, my favourite Fox fork is actually the mid-range one with the black stanchions.
Really? Maybe that's why you do like RockShox, black on black.
Maybe. I don't know.
But I don't know, maybe this is a debate we should hand over to our audience. Join the debate in the comments below. Are you a RockShox or a Fox person? Or do you love something like DVO or
something
Boss?
Another.
Or
something another.
Maybe you're an Öhlins fan. We've got a couple of sets around here for sure that we're tinkering with. And, let's not forget those sort of niche coil guys like EXT or like Push Industries. They're doing some great stuff with adjustable coils. So let us know what you like in the comments below and tell us why as well. So we've got a new prototype been spotted on Instagram by Trinity, and they've been working with Williams Racing Products, who we've mentioned previously. Have you seen their center hub, which is basically like an O chain but completely free spinning?
I have. It looks very cool.
So they're obviously on top of trying new things and prototyping. And check this out on Instagram. This is their prototype, which is basically supposed to be completely modular. That unusual bottom bracket area means that you can run a normal BB shell to run a 1x drivetrain. You can either have a downhill 7-speed, for example, or an Enduro 12-speed. It'll even take pinion P-line and FE gear, and they're even working on their own solution, which kind of looks a bit like that gearbox in a hub. That cassette in a box kind of.
Honda, RN01, circa 2004.
That?
I was very fortunate actually to have been with Greg Manal when he did his first test rides on the Honda back in 2003, 2004 in southern Spain. So I really think that it's at World Cup racing that we should see, prototype designs with the racers. I mean, we've seen it with, Nico Mullally last year. I think Aaron Gwynn had some prototype bikes. I think we've seen some prototypes with Com and Sal.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
But, stuff like this, steel and aluminium.
It's a
steel aluminium hybrid. I'm interested to see how that works because obviously the two materials have two very different characteristics.
They do. I think the front triangle is like they said is in prototype stage at the moment. So it looks like maybe they've welded up some steel tubes because that's easy to play with and quick to make themselves. But if you look at the CAD designs on the websites, it looks like they've got sort of whole pieces in the head tube. So I'm thinking they're probably going to start additively manufacturing that from maybe aluminium.
Do you know what? I'm all for steel. I don't think it'll be long before we see more steel bikes at World Cup racing. We've got Loic Bruni, the world champion. He uses aluminium handlebars, aluminium frame, aluminium wheels.
Yeah.
I don't think it's long before we see a new material. I think maybe the days of carbon are maybe numbered somewhere, possibly.
Maybe.
I don't know. 180, 200 mil travel.
Yeah, so it's adjustable. So this is another part of the modular system in that you can add a 180 mil fork or a 200 mil dual crown fork, and even in the rear you can have 180 air or you can have a 200 coil. So is this like this sort of adjustable downhill bike for enduro riders, or maybe the enduro bike for downhill riders? Two bikes in one almost.
And another question, is modular the new in thing on tech?
Definitely. We've seen a lot of people giving options to riders. I think more options and more dialability or tunability or geometry choosing options.
Modular. There's always going to be something to sell, isn't there?
Yeah. And then Doddy sent me a link to this and said, oh, look at the high pivot design. It reminds me of the GT RTS. What are you saying about that?
Don't know where you are with that one, Donny. Do you know what? I think that knuckle on the top of the seat stay reminds me of. Does it remind you of maybe a Da Vinci Wilson, possibly, or maybe the Wilson was a bigger arc, wasn't it? But definitely reminds me of something. 62 to 65 head angle, 444 for 460 chainstay, reach of 420 to 530. I think that 530. That's pretty big, I have to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, love it. I absolutely love it.
Well, it's exciting to see a new sort of gearbox being invented regardless.
So next up, folks, we've got the new Intense Tracer 29. Now, believe it or not, I actually rode the first Intense Tracer a decade ago.
Really?
No,
You're never that old.
The Intense Tracer was once the go-to trail enduro bike. It was 140mm travel. It was aluminium, 29-inch wheels. It had very different geometry back in the day. I think it had a 69 head tube angle on it. It weighed in at 28 pounds, I think, but it was an absolute flying machine. It was actually one of the first 29-inch wheel bikes that actually did it.
Yeah.
It really cut it, at enduro and trail style racing and riding. But it actually won the first UK Gravity Enduro Series, I think, the Intense Tracer. But this is very different, Anna. Yeah. This is now 170mm travel, front and rear. It's a very different design.
They did bring out a 279, so a mixed wheel earlier in the year. So I'm assuming they're just expanding the range with a 29er version as well. Yeah,
medium, large, extra large. Geometry, head angle 64.4, seat tube angle 77.7. So to get all your weight up over the front, get some more pressure on the front tire, and a reach 455 to 505. So good range there, I think.
Yeah, not bad. Now it's been labelled the JS Tunes suspension, which is what they usually have, isn't it, on the Intense? JS being Jeff Stebar, the CEO of Intense, but he's been working quite closely with Santa Cruz to perfect that suspension system, and it does look a little bit VPP, it does look a little bit Santa Cruz-y, would you not say? Does that not look like a Santa Cruz to you?
No.
No? I don't know, it's got Mega Tower vibes.
What I will say is I'm really happy to see Intense have been, Aaron Gwynn and Dakota Norton did really well at that. I thought they nearly had that last round at Val di Sole. I'm really happy to see Intense back in the mix. It's a really cool company.
Yeah.
They make great products. So yeah, I'd actually like, I'd like to have a go at that Tracer 29 for sure.
Yeah, why not? And then over in the world of muck-off, they've brought out some new stuff, basically. We've got a new base layer, we've got neck guards, they've brought out some technical jerseys with different patterns and matching gloves for both kids and big kids alike.
Old kids.
And then, and then also we've got some technical jackets, which they've done before, but they've added some technical shorts as well, so waterproofing or water protection. And they're doing it in a nice new royal blue. So not bad stuff there.
Yeah, and you can get your jet wash out to wash your clothes down after you've done a muddy ride.
Exactly. Okay, it is quiz time. So, first question, name the South African racer who took a gold medal in Italy on a bike with an intense back end. Didn't you mention him earlier? You might have actually mentioned him.
Did I? Now this next question. Williams Racing Products make the center hub, a system allowing the chainring to rotate independently to the crank for decoupling the suspension. What other brand makes a product that does a similar job?
Loads of people riding them at the moment. And then third question, we mentioned the GT RTS, or at least Doddy mentioned it.
At least Doddy did, yeah.
What does RTS stand for? Answers coming up soon. Okay, comments from last week's show. So last week we were talking about EWS by numbers, so the split between bike brands and the split between suspension, and it was about 60-40 Fox RockShox on the suspension choice. Yeah.
Whoa, that's quite surprising actually.
I know, even in the top 10 and the top 50.
Top 50 are all RockShox and Fox?
About 60%. Wow. No, there was a handful of people on DBO and some others.
Folks, there's some sponsorship sponsorship opportunities here, for sure.
For sure, there's opportunities. And we actually opened up the poll on our community tab as well, and we had 9,000 people who voted between Fox and RockShox. 59% said they'd rather have Fox. So, I mean, it's quite close.
And it'd have Fox.
I would say.
And it'd have Fox.
Sorry, RockShox.
What do you guys say, though? That's the question.
Well, the comments. So this is a good starting point from Tenacious E, who said the numbers are skewed by sponsorship, which is something I mentioned last week. They're not all privateers, are they? So
yeah, it's true. It's true. And then this is from XNK. For the Cape Epic, they usually post a lot of stats regarding droppers being used, group sets, suspension platforms. Would be cool if they did the same for EWS.
Yeah, so I basically had to manually go and look at every athlete to get my numbers. So I just didn't have the time for group sets. But that's a really good idea. If someone could if the UCI could do that for us, that would be great.
Appreciate the graft, Anna.
Yeah. So Jeff Blauvelt says, trust shout fork. Gotta win with style. What are you saying about that? Would you race the EWS on a trust fork?
Swiftly moving on to the next comment. Now, moving on from the forks at EWS Racing, this next comment is from Will Lang, and it says, what an amazing and intelligent presentation of what's up. That auto drop BMC seat post, though, next level. Who will be the first to pioneer a non-circular seat post and scrap the keyways?
Oh, so he's talking about, I guess, because you have little keys. I don't know if we've got
keys.
So you have little keys in a drop post so that it goes down, but you don't want it to bind.
Okay, yeah.
But the problem with those is they wear, so your saddle always wiggles, doesn't it? So I guess he's saying, well, why don't we have a non-circular one so it never wiggles?
So doesn't the lefty have a square internal?
Well, I think it used to, but if you look now, this is rounded and it has.
But it used to be squared, didn't it?
Stop it.
It used to be square.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, square seat post, Anna.
Honestly, I don't know if that
You don't care, do you? You just don't care, do you?
No, not really. Moving on.
As long as it goes, yeah.
So Thunderstruck MTB said, good to see BMC keeping the cables out of the headset. Yeah, I agree. At least one design team in the industry with their heads out of their own rears.
Okay, and then Rusty Fox 46. Just watched that volcano crash. Think I'll be having some nightmares tonight. Volcano crash?
Sorry,
folks.
Mr. Barone, who reached 220 kilometers an hour down a ski slope. He did it on dry land as well, and it wasn't pretty. His forks blew up, basically. Yeah, they snapped in half.
I think we will find that land speed record will be challenged soon.
Really?
Yeah, more on that. I'll let you guys in on that in the future. Yeah.
So for Bike Cave today, well, Doddy's gone over to Fat Creations, so let's see what's in their cave.
Thanks, Anna and Steve. I'm here down at Fat Creations. Now this is actually where it all started, because they've got their lovely new workshop, which we're going to have a look at in a minute, but check this for Bike Cave. I can barely stand up in here, so as you can see, this is not a big room. And Ali said these literally painted thousands of bikes in this room. This is literally where the business began. It's absolutely tiny in here. So as you can see, like all the paint on the workbench behind you, the original logo for Fat Creations here. There's stuff everywhere in here. It's so cool to see. Old Cannondale Super V Carbon just discarded at the side there. Old Tony Barton numbers and stuff on there. Old USC suspension forks, because Ali used to work for USC way back in the day. And it's obviously specialist paints everywhere. You can see old number boards from his racing days. And then just in here, you can see just old stuff really. Like very much get the feeling that this part has been abandoned. An original e-bike here with a bit of a conversion going on down there. I'm sure Jonesy will have a thing or two to say about that. But this is where Fat Creations began. This is cool. But come and have a look at their new setup. That's where we're painting the frame today. This is really cool. And this is the brand new purpose-built setup. So this is where Bex will sit doing the graphic design. In fact, if you don't look too closely at my computer there, you might see some ideas of what we're going to be doing for my bike. Lovely little Manitou down here for inspiration. Plenty of stuff going on. Team Dogs in the house. And you can see just a couple of the bikes. So this is the second Mint Force. Of course, Bex had a head-on with a tree stump and snapped the front end off. That's hanging up there somewhere. And this was a show bike that Ali did. This is Scott. The two of them probably got the most amount of work that they've done on any of the projects. Loads of cool memorabilia everywhere. In fact, it's even a really cool shot. That looks like Ali to me with Jason McCroy there. How cool is that? Of course, Petey's last orders. Some of the most famous bikes, actually. So Petey, for his last year at the World Cup, had a different bike for every World Cup round. The rims were done on it, the frames, the forks. He had custom helmets and even custom racing kit. Amazing stuff to see. And this in here, a little bit different space-wise to where Fat Creation started. This is where the magic happens, the spray booth. We're going to be in here a little bit later working on a project that you're going to see on GMBN Tech very soon. Just going to throw back to you in the GMBN Tech set. See you later.
We coming to quiz answers?
Yeah, it's quiz answer time. Go on then, you go for the first one.
It's quiz answer time. Thanks, Anna. Right, okay, name the South African who won in Italy on a bike with an intense back end. Well, I know the answer to that. That was Lugano World Championships 2003. Greg Minnaar was on a Harrow. I think it was his first ever, was his first World Championships? Yeah, I think it was his first. He won the World Cup 2001. But yes,
so we did mention him earlier with the Honda racing.
We did, yeah.
And then Williams Racing Products made the centre hub, but what other brand did a similar job? Oh, it was the O-Chain. So
O-Chain!
We've seen this on a lot of enduro bikes and downhill bikes at the moment, so it's all over the place.
Yeah, and then the final one, folks, is we mentioned the RTS earlier on. What does RTS stand for? Rocker Tuned Suspension. This was GT's first release suspension MTB frame.
Well, there you go. Very insightful quiz questions today, and thank you so much for joining us.
Anna,
today,
thank you for inviting me. It's great to be on the Tech Show. Great to be talking about downhill stuff. I do miss it, I have to say.
Exactly, and if you don't watch EMBN, you don't know Steve, you might know him from our downhill history videos that we did. So go and check those out if you've got a few spare minutes, and we'll catch you next week for another show. Thanks, guys.